It wasn't the kind of thing that just happens overnight. It never is, right? You don't wake up one day and suddenly realize everything you thought you knew is a lie. But sometimes, something as small as a glance, a fleeting moment, can unravel everything you've believed in. Let me start from the beginning. It was a Friday afternoon when I noticed it. I was sitting at my desk, scrolling through emails, trying to focus on work. Selina, my wife, had been gone most of the morning, as she often was these days. I didn't think much of it. She worked freelance, and sometimes she had shoots or meetings that kept her out for hours at a time. She didn't have a set schedule, but that was the life we'd built together. I was okay with it. I respected her independence. That afternoon, though, something changed. I don't know if it was her sudden silence or the way she started avoiding my eyes, but I felt it in my gut. It wasn't like the usual "she's just tired" feeling. No, this was different. She came back home around 4:30 p.m., walking through the front door with her bag slung over her shoulder. Her eyes were tired, but something else was off. It was the way she moved, like there was something hidden behind that smile of hers. She kissed me on the cheek, like she always did, but it didn't feel the same. There was no warmth in it, just a kind of routine that we both had perfected over the years. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "How was your day?" "Busy," she replied, dropping her bag onto the couch and heading straight for the kitchen. Her voice was too steady, too controlled. I let it slide. I knew she was probably stressed from work, and I didn't want to push her. But something in me kept asking, what was different today? It wasn't until I checked the time that I realized how late it was getting. The evening had crept up on us, and I had plans to pick her up later from an event, one of those industry things she occasionally went to. She didn't invite me. She never did for these things. It wasn't that she didn't want me there. It was just, she didn't need me there. She'd always been self-sufficient, and I loved that about her. Still, I had gotten used to the idea of her being gone on Friday nights. By 9 p.m., I was getting ready to head out. I had planned to arrive by 9:30, but I wanted to leave early just to be sure. I didn't know why, but that nagging feeling was still there, that something was slightly off. Maybe it was because I hadn't heard from her since she walked in the door hours ago, or maybe because she hadn't mentioned much about the event. I arrived at the venue just after 9:15. The building was an old, industrial space that had been transformed into a sleek event hall, with the soft hum of chatter and music spilling out the doors. I parked my car and walked toward the entrance, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. But then, as I was stepping inside, I saw her. Selina. She wasn't alone. She was standing across the room, laughing, a real, genuine laugh I hadn't heard in months. It wasn't forced or polite. She was talking to someone, but it wasn't just anyone. The man she was with was tall, lean, wearing an expensive-looking suit, and the way they stood together was familiar. Not the way you stand with a colleague or an acquaintance. No, this was different. Their bodies were angled toward each other in a way that felt too intimate. I couldn't explain it, but I knew. I just knew. It wasn't even a matter of suspicion. It was more like a gut punch. I was standing in the doorway, frozen, watching her as she smiled at him in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her eyes sparkled in a way that was not the way she looked at me. I told myself I was overreacting. It's just a work event, right? Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just enjoying herself, like she always did when she was in her element. But I couldn't tear my eyes away. I didn't want to approach her yet. I wanted to see how long this moment would last. For the next few minutes, I watched. They were engaged in what seemed like an intense conversation, but it wasn't the words that caught my attention. It was the way they interacted. He leaned in close as he said something to her, and for a split second, she looked at him the way she used to look at me when we were first dating, like he was the only person in the room. Her head tilted slightly as she listened to him. That perfect, flattering smile stretched across her face. And it hit me. She wasn't just talking to him. She was enjoying herself. More than that, she was enjoying him. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out of that venue and never look back. But my legs wouldn't move. I felt like I was trapped in that moment, frozen in a memory I couldn't erase. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't understand why it felt like the world was closing in on me. I had to talk to her. I had to see what this was. But as if reading my mind, she suddenly turned her head. Her eyes locked onto mine across the room. There was a brief flicker of surprise, maybe even guilt. And in that second, I could see it, the shift. It was like she realized I was there, but the shock wasn't about seeing me. It was about me seeing her. Seeing this side of her I hadn't known existed. Her smile faltered for a split second before she turned back to the man, saying something that I couldn't quite hear. Then, they both started walking toward the bar. She looked back at me once more, but this time it wasn't with excitement or guilt. It was avoidance. I wasn't sure what I was feeling at that point. Anger, confusion, disbelief. It was like I'd caught a glimpse of something, a part of her life that I wasn't meant to see. A world she had been keeping from me, and suddenly, everything felt like a lie. I couldn't stop watching them. I didn't want to, but I couldn't look away. It wasn't just her smile. It wasn't just the way they were standing close, almost too close for colleagues. It was something more, something I wasn't prepared to face. I was still standing there in the doorway when they walked toward the bar, a quiet, intense conversation between them. And then, she saw me. Her eyes locked with mine, and for that split second, it felt like time stopped. She didn't smile. She didn't wave me over. No, there was nothing but a flash of surprise in her eyes, followed by something I couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe? Discomfort, definitely. But most of all, it was an expression I'd never seen on her before. She didn't look like the woman I married. I thought about turning around and walking out. Hell, I wanted to. I wanted to pretend like none of this was happening. But my feet felt like they were glued to the floor, like I was stuck in a dream I couldn't escape. She gave me one last glance, but this time, it wasn't just surprise. It was avoidance. I watched her and this guy walk to the bar, their backs to me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were deliberately putting distance between us. Not because they were doing anything wrong, but because whatever they were doing, they didn't want me to be a part of it. And it hit me, the gut-wrenching realization that I had no idea who my wife was anymore. I stayed there for a few minutes, still watching them. She seemed so at ease, so in her element. Like she wasn't just part of this event, but part of this world, a world I didn't belong to anymore. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out, confront her, ask her what the hell was going on. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there, the silence around me deafening. I finally gathered the strength to approach them. I walked slowly, making my way through the crowd, trying to act like everything was normal. She saw me coming but didn't seem in a hurry to meet me halfway. Her hand was still on the back of the guy's chair, laughing at something he'd said, but her eyes kept darting back to me. It felt like she was waiting for something. A cue, a sign that it was okay for her to just pretend everything was fine. But I wasn't giving her that. I walked up to the bar, casually standing next to her, trying to force a smile, but I couldn't get past the tightness in my chest. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She turned to me, her eyes now guarded, like she was trying to hide something from me, and I couldn't tell what it was. "Oh, you're here," she said, almost too casually. "I didn't think you'd make it." The guy beside her, Mark, as she introduced him, extended his hand to shake mine. "Nice to meet you, man," he said, with that overly confident smile. A smile that felt too practiced. I nodded, barely glancing at him. My attention was still on Selina, her face now an unreadable mask. She was standing there, shifting slightly, as if uncomfortable, but trying her hardest not to show it. "We were just talking about the event," she added, her tone a little too light, like she was trying to deflect my attention. But I wasn't fooled. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. The same tension I had felt earlier, the same sense of something being off. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. "What's going on, Selina?" I asked quietly, my voice low but firm. She froze, her face flushing slightly as she looked at Mark, then back at me. For a split second, it seemed like she was deciding whether or not to say anything. "Nothing's going on," she replied too quickly, a little too defensive. Mark cleared his throat awkwardly, and I could tell he wasn't comfortable with where this conversation was heading. "Maybe we should go grab a drink," he suggested, his tone a little too eager. It was clear he wanted to get away from whatever tension was building between us. But I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. "Not yet. No, I'm not leaving until I understand what's going on," I said, feeling that familiar anger creeping in. Selina's face softened for a moment, and she stepped closer to me, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Let's go outside, please. We'll talk, I swear. Just not here." I didn't want to move. I didn't want to leave this moment, not when everything in my gut was telling me to stay. But I agreed, reluctantly. We walked outside into the cool night air, leaving Mark and the event behind us. As soon as the door closed behind us, she sighed, her shoulders sagging. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said, her voice trembling. I waited, my eyes locked on hers. Find out what, exactly? She looked down for a moment, taking a deep breath before meeting my gaze. I've been seeing someone, okay? And I didn't know how to tell you. My heart stopped. The words felt like they were being ripped out of me, and I had to take a step back to process them. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted, like everything I thought was solid was now crumbling. What? What do you mean? I didn't want to hurt you, she continued, her voice barely a whisper. But I've been seeing Mark for the last couple of months. It started as a work thing, but it turned into something else. I was speechless, stunned. I couldn't comprehend what she was saying. How could she do this to me? How long had this been going on? She didn't give me a chance to respond. She just looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't place. Regret, maybe. Or was it relief? I didn't know. And then it hit me. I didn't know her anymore. I don't think I'd ever felt more lost in my life. My mind was reeling, trying to process what Selina had just said. Seeing her standing there, looking so vulnerable, so unlike the woman I thought I knew, made my chest tighten. I couldn't breathe. You've been seeing him? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It felt like I was talking through a fog. She nodded, her eyes welling up, but she didn't cry. Instead, she looked resigned, as if the weight of her confession had already crushed her, and there was nothing left to break. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice shaky. It just happened. I never meant for it to go this far, but I didn't know how to stop it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't I seen it? But I couldn't find the words. All I could do was stare at her, trying to make sense of the mess in front of me. I never wanted to hurt you, she continued, her voice cracking. But I've been so lost, and Mark, he made me feel something I didn't even realize I was missing. I felt something snap inside me. It wasn't anger, not at first. It was more like a sharp pang of betrayal, a pain that cut deeper than anything I could have imagined. I had loved her so deeply, trusted her so completely, and now everything was shattered. Why didn't you tell me? I managed to ask, my voice strained. Why didn't you come to me if you were feeling lost? Her gaze dropped to the ground, and for a long moment, there was only silence. I could see the regret on her face, the way her hands trembled slightly at her sides. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to erase the fact that she'd been hiding this from me. I didn't know how, she whispered. I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt like I was losing myself, like we were drifting apart, and I didn't know what to do. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to understand, to make sense of this. But it was hard. Too hard. The betrayal was suffocating. So what now? I asked, my voice barely audible. I wasn't sure if I was asking her or myself. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and fear. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I didn't know what to say. I felt numb. My heart was broken, but I didn't know how to fix it. And I didn't know if I could even look at her the same way again. Is it over with him? I asked, finally finding my voice again. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, it's over. I ended it tonight. I swear, I won't see him again. But those words didn't bring me comfort. How could they? How could I trust her again after everything she'd kept from me? After everything she'd hidden? I turned away, my mind racing. I couldn't process it all. It was too much, too sudden. I needed space. I needed time to think. I think I need to be alone, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. She nodded, her face pale, but she didn't argue. I walked away without looking back. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My mind was spinning, replaying every word Selina had said, every look she'd given, every moment I thought was real. I kept asking myself how I hadn't seen it coming. The signs were all there, her distance, the late nights, the little things that should have raised alarms. But I had ignored them, thinking it was all just a phase, thinking everything was fine. But now, nothing felt real. By morning, I had no idea what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her, demand more answers. But another part of me, one I hated, just wanted to walk away. How could I look at her the same way after what she'd done? I spent most of the day trying to clear my head. I went for a long walk, walked around the city aimlessly, hoping that if I just moved, just kept going, I'd be able to outrun the thoughts that kept attacking me. But I couldn't escape them. When I came back home that afternoon, the house felt empty, despite her being there. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch, but she didn't look up when I walked in. She just stared at the wall, lost in thought. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. The silence between us was suffocating. I stood in the doorway, unsure of what to say. It was like we were both waiting for the other to break the silence, but neither of us could. Finally, she spoke. I know you probably hate me right now. Her voice was barely a whisper, filled with shame. But please, just let me explain more. I can't undo what I've done, but I need you to know it wasn't easy for me. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to lash out, to yell at her for the lies, for the betrayal. But another part of me just felt numb. Explain, I said, my voice flat. Explain what? How you've been lying to me for months. How you've been seeing someone behind my back. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just looked at me with that same sad, defeated expression. I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe me. Mark was. I don't even know how to explain it. It was just a way for me to escape. I've been so unhappy, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. We've been drifting apart for so long, and I didn't know how to stop it. I shook my head, disbelief flooding my mind. I thought we were happy, Selina. I thought we had something real. You didn't even come to me when you felt like this. You chose him over me. My words came out harsher than I intended, but the anger was there, bubbling up to the surface. She flinched, but didn't back down. I know, she said, her voice barely audible. I should have come to you. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. But I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was losing myself, and when I met Mark, it felt like I had finally found something. Something I thought I needed. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. I didn't know what to say. Could I forgive her? Could I even look at her the same way again after everything she had done? I wanted to ask her all the questions swirling in my head. How long had it been going on? What had happened between them? But I knew that asking would only hurt more. The answers wouldn't change anything. The silence between us stretched on, unbearable. Finally, I spoke, my voice low, almost too quiet to hear. What do we do now, Selina? What's left for us? She didn't answer right away. She just sat there, looking at her hands, as if searching for something to say. After a long pause, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and regret. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know if we can fix this, but I want to try. Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, one I wasn't sure I could grasp. The trust between us had been shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. I didn't know if I could forgive her for what she had done. But at that moment, I realized something. Whether or not I could forgive her, whether or not we could fix what was broken, was no longer the question. The question was whether or not I could trust her again. And I didn't know the answer to that. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I tossed and turned, my mind racing through every possible scenario. I kept replaying the conversation with Selina, trying to find some sign that things could be fixed, some glimmer of hope that this was just a bump in the road. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep the wound really was. By morning, the house felt even colder. Selina was still there, but it was as if the space between us had grown immeasurably. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, making coffee, but neither of us spoke at first. There was nothing left to say. What could we say? She finally broke the silence, her voice hesitant. I'm sorry for what I've done. I know there's no excuse for it. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to talk to you about how I was feeling. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to tell her I was angry, that I couldn't just forget what had happened. But at the same time, I felt this sense of exhaustion creeping in, like all the fight had been drained out of me. The trust we had built over the years, it was gone, and I wasn't sure I could ever get it back. How long, Selina? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How long has it been going on? She looked down, avoiding my gaze. I could see the guilt written all over her face. A few months, she confessed, her voice barely audible. It started out small, just talking. But then it became more, and I didn't know how to stop it. A few months. That was the part that hurt the most. Months of lies, months of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. And now, I was standing here, trying to figure out what came next. I ran a hand through my hair, frustrated and lost. How could you do this to me, to us? She stepped toward me, but I couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just I was lost. I felt like I was falling apart. And when I found someone who seemed to understand, it felt like everything made sense for a moment. But now I see how much I've destroyed. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I didn't want to hear how she had been lost or how she didn't know what to do. All I could think about was the man she had chosen over me, the man who had been filling the void I hadn't even known existed. I don't know if I can do this, Selina, I said, the words feeling like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. She took a shaky breath. I know, and I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I need you to know that I regret everything, and I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. But deep down, I knew that nothing she could say would change what had happened. The damage was done. I wasn't sure how much longer I could stand in that kitchen, staring at Selina. Her words were echoing in my head, but they didn't feel real. She was sorry. She regretted it. But could she ever truly understand the damage she had done? Could she comprehend the weight of her betrayal? I didn't know anymore. The silence stretched on between us, thick and suffocating. She kept looking at me, waiting for something, maybe for me to say something, to give her some sign that I was still here, still willing to try. But all I could do was stare at the ground, my heart racing with a mix of anger, confusion, and sadness. I don't know how to fix this, Selina, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. I don't even know if I want to fix this. Her face fell, the hope she had been clinging to fading with my words. Please, just give me a chance. I'll prove to you that I can make it right. I'll do whatever it takes to make you see that I'm still the person you married. Her desperation was palpable, and a small part of me, just a tiny part, wanted to believe her. But another part, the part that had been hurt the most, screamed at me not to be foolish. How could I trust her again? How could I even begin to think about fixing something so broken? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from an unknown number. I picked it up, my heart still racing from the tension in the room, and opened the message. It was short, simple, and sent my world spinning. We need to talk. I'm sorry about everything. I didn't mean for it to go this far. The name at the top of the message? Mark. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. This couldn't be real. Why was he texting me now, after everything that had happened? My stomach twisted with disgust as I stared at the screen. I felt the anger surge within me, hotter than anything I had felt before. How dare he? How dare he try to reach out after what he had done? I showed the message to Selina, my hands shaking. Her face went pale as she saw it, and for the first time since this whole ordeal began, I saw fear in her eyes. Why is he texting me? I asked, my voice tight. She opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. I don't know. I told him it was over. I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. But the message, the words on the screen, didn't match up with her story. This wasn't just an apology. This was something else. This was an attempt to reopen something that had been shut down. Why is he still trying to reach out to me? I demanded, my anger rising. What are you not telling me? Selina's eyes flickered nervously. I swear, I haven't talked to him since last night. But I didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her explanations. I didn't want to hear anything that would make me think this could still be fixed. I had to know the truth, once and for all. I grabbed my jacket, still holding my phone in my hand. I'm going to meet him, I said, cutting through the tension in the room like a knife. Selina's eyes widened in horror. No, please. Don't do this. You don't know what you're walking into. I don't want you to get hurt. Just trust me. But I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after everything. Not when I had a message from Mark, and I had no idea what game he was playing now. I need answers, I said, the words heavy in the air. And I'm going to get them. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out the door. I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew that this was the only way to uncover the truth. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I drove through the city. The streets blurred past me, but all I could think about was that message from Mark. What the hell did he want? Why couldn't he just let it end? My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight, I thought they might start to shake. I didn't know what I was expecting when I showed up at his place. Maybe I was looking for an apology, some kind of closure. Maybe I just wanted to see the person who had been a part of Selina's life behind my back, to look him in the eye and see what kind of man he was. His apartment was on the second floor of a building tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. I parked out front, hesitating for a moment before I got out. The air felt heavier now, thick with tension. I wasn't just confronting Mark. I was confronting everything I had ignored for months. Everything I hadn't wanted to see. I took a deep breath before I rang the doorbell. It took a few moments before he answered, his face almost unreadable when he saw me standing there. Mark wasn't tall, but there was something about his presence that immediately put me on edge. He stood there in a loose shirt, looking surprised but not necessarily guilty. His eyes didn't even flinch when they met mine. "Didn't expect you," he said with a casual smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice low and controlled, though I could feel my anger bubbling beneath the surface. "About what?" he asked, crossing his arms. "I told you, it's over with Selina. She made her choice. You don't need to come here." I didn't let his words stop me. "You sent me a message. You need to explain yourself. Why are you still reaching out to me after everything?" He didn't immediately respond, instead glancing over his shoulder, as if he was considering whether or not to let me in. I wasn't interested in playing games. "I'm not here for your excuses, Mark," I said, stepping closer. "I want the truth. Now." He sighed, stepping aside to let me in. The apartment was small, with dim lighting and a cluttered couch that looked like it had seen better days. Mark motioned for me to sit, but I stood, refusing to take a seat. "I didn't mean for any of this to get out of hand," he said, his voice now sounding more sincere, though I wasn't sure if I believed him. "I honestly didn't. But things happen. I've been talking to Selina for months, and she's not the woman you think she is." My stomach turned. "What does that mean? What are you saying?" Mark paused, looking like he was carefully choosing his next words. "She's been unhappy for a long time. I didn't start this, she did. She came to me first, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't fall for her. But, hey, I'm not the bad guy here. She made the decision to keep it going." I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "So, what are you trying to tell me exactly?" Mark leaned forward, his expression softening. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. Hell, I don't think there's anything to forgive. But I'm just telling you, Selina was looking for something more. She wasn't just having an affair. She wanted out. She was already planning to leave you before we got involved." I froze. His words hit me like a slap. "What? What do you mean? She was planning to leave me?" He nodded slowly, like he was speaking the truth he thought I needed to hear. "I think she'd already made up her mind. I was just a distraction, man. A way for her to deal with everything she couldn't face with you. She didn't know how to tell you." I stood there in disbelief, trying to process what he was saying. "So, she was already done with me?" Mark shrugged. "I don't know, man. But that's what it felt like. She's been lost for a while. You probably noticed, right? The distance, the late nights, the way she checked out." Every word he said felt like a knife twisting deeper. Part of me wanted to lash out at him, accuse him of being just as guilty, but there was something in his voice that made me stop. He wasn't blaming me, and he wasn't offering any kind of excuse for himself. I took a step back, the weight of his words crashing down on me. If that's true, then why the hell did she lie to me about everything? Mark looked at me for a long time, like he was searching for an answer he didn't have. "I don't know. Maybe she thought she could keep both lives. But she's a mess, man. She didn't know what she was doing. I'm just the guy who happened to be there." I didn't know what to think anymore. My mind was a blur, each thought tumbling over the last, trying to make sense of it all. The betrayal, the lies, everything that had been hidden from me. Mark might have been the one who had an affair with her, but it was clear that the real problem wasn't just him. It was Selina. I left Mark's apartment feeling like I'd just walked through a storm. His words lingered in my mind, but something else began to take shape inside me. Something unexpected. It wasn't relief, but it was a strange kind of clarity. I had been so consumed by anger and betrayal that I couldn't see beyond it. But now I understood something I hadn't before. It wasn't just about Selina's affair or Mark. It was about us, the life we had built and lost sight of. It wasn't too late to find a way forward, but I had to make the choice. When I returned home, Selina was still sitting in the same spot, waiting for me. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes wide with worry. But she didn't speak immediately. She just watched me, waiting for some sign of what was going on inside my head. "Did you talk to him?" she asked quietly. I nodded, walking over to where she sat her day. "I talked to Mark." She took a shaky breath, but I stopped her before she could say anything else. "Selina, I know about the distance. I know you were unhappy long before all of this happened. I get it now, and I'm not angry anymore." Her eyes widened in confusion, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. You're not angry? I shook my head. I was. I was angry at you, at Mark, at everything. But the truth is, we've both been drifting for a long time, and we've been hiding from it. Selina's face crumpled, the weight of her own regret finally breaking through. I never meant to hurt you. I was so lost, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought if I kept it all inside, maybe it would go away. But it only made everything worse. I knelt in front of her, taking her hands in mine. I know, but we're not perfect, Selina. We're both human, and we made mistakes. What matters now is whether or not we can start over. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. She was looking at me like she hadn't been in a long time, like I was still the person she loved, the person she wanted to fight for. I want to start over, too, she whispered. We sat there for a while, just holding each other. The tension in the room slowly began to fade, replaced by something more fragile but real, a chance. It wasn't going to be easy. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. But as I held her, I knew that we still had a foundation, a history together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to give us a shot at something better. The road ahead was uncertain, and the scars would remain. But I wasn't giving up on us. Not yet. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that things could get better. We could get better. Together.